Hey, I'm Dagny. Let's talk about books. Can you believe we are halfway through the year? Like, it's crazy. I don't even know how to feel, but a nice positive thing about that is that I have officially read 9 books during this year, like during the first half of the year. So I wanted to share with you the books I've read and give you my take on it. So, first book. The order I put them in is like the order of which I remember them. So they're not exactly the order in which I read them, but I don't remember some of them in the order in which I read them, but it's fine. First book, Children of Virtue and Vengeance by Tomi Adeyemi. Okay, so this actually was the first book I read this year. It was also the first book I read with the book club called Ghana Must Read. So if you are in Ghana and you're looking for a book club, you should definitely check them out. I will put their information in the blog post for this video. I actually enjoyed this book. I'm laughing in myself because I remember when we met for the book club, I was like one of the very few who really enjoyed the book. But I totally understand why the others who didn't. They actually had valid points as to what they wanted to see more of in the book. So, in terms of what I enjoyed, I actually enjoyed the alternative world that the author created. I know some of it was based off of Africa and Nigeria, but I liked the way it was. I liked the way she described the alternative world. I liked also the way she described and organized the different tribes, which also were inspired and influenced by actual tribes as well as folklore. I really liked that. I thought that was really cool. I also liked how the story evolved by the perspectives of the different characters as opposed to actual chapters, which for me is the first time I've read a book written like that. So instead of having chapter 1 and chapter 2, the next phase of the story was just named after one of the characters. And then you hear part of the story evolves or progresses by us just following along that character for that period of time and understanding what's going on in their mind and everything. And then the next part, we're now bouncing to another character and following along with them. So I thought that was really cool because usually you're following along with either just a narrator or one character usually. So I thought that was creative and interesting. Now, in terms of things I wanted to see more of, one, I actually wanted the characters to explore more of the world that she created. You get the sense that, because there's even a map, an illustration of a map in there, which reminded me of the Chronicles of Narnia. So I was expecting more like the Chronicles of Narnia, where you really are going all over the place through the map. I was expecting more of that traveling as opposed to, at least for this book, it's just the kingdom, castle, and the town around that kingdom, and then the mountains where the others are hiding. And that's kind of it, where it felt but there's so much land out there. Are y'all the only people in this world right now? Where is everybody else? How come no one else knows about this tit for tat battle y'all are having? Or is everyone else dead? I don't understand. So that was something I would have liked to see more of. And then the character herself. You have 2 main characters who are women in this story, and they have all of the power. And the main one that we are in her head for the majority of the story, she keeps on fumbling the bag all the time. The story would evolve a little bit, the story would progress, and then we're stalling. There's this plateau because she's all in her head and everything is her fault, but it's her responsibility to do everything. So she should fix everything regardless of everyone giving her the guidance of what to do. She wants to do the exact opposite because she knows better, because she knows it's all her, because, oh my God, woe is her. She's a victim of what is her. And it's I know partly that's to maybe make her seem more real because you don't want a woman character to be all perfect and she has no problem with anything. Overall, I would recommend reading the book. I ended up reading the series backwards, so I read this book first, and I have yet to read the actual first book. So I'm looking forward to reading, that is on my list for the second part of the year, to actually read the first book, so I have the full story. But yeah, definitely recommend it. Also, because it was through this book that I got to experience the book club Ghana Must Read, I also recommend checking them out too. What I think is also cool, one, yes, it was cool to meet them and meet with them in person like a traditional book club. But as of now, they've been doing the deal of they meet over Zoom, and they also meet with not only with the group, but also with the author of the book they're reading is a part of their book club meetings now over Zoom, which I think is like so clever and innovative, because I think that just adds even more to the conversation of the book, because you get to actually speak to the person whose mind, you know, created such a masterpiece, which I thought was really neat. Next book is Three Kings, Dr. Dre, Diddy, Jay-Z, and Hip Hop's Multi-Million-Dollar Rise by Zack O'Malley Greensburg. I liked how it has a mixture of a whole lot of like history and pop culture and inspiration woven into it. He did interview all three of those people, plus different people within their lives. But you get a sneak peek of their personalities and how their circumstances, how they utilized their circumstances and their environment and opportunity to build what they got and how they got to where they are now, and how influential they've been in the transformation of hip hop. All three of them are such different personalities. Like they all three really took a very different route in capitalizing on like riding the wave of hip hop, going from like this is Black music and this is a voice for protest to this is capitalism and this is trending, and made to like a hyper level to make it a legitimate money empire. Then you get to learn also like what really was going on between, a little bit of what exactly was going on between Tupac and Biggie. You get a little bit of like how Sprite totally revamped their whole brand, and basically hip hop saved Sprite. I think the only like, I don't want to say negative, but the counter take I got from it was sometimes the absence of women in it. So it would be cool to have a book of three queens that do a similar thing of taking you through the journey of three women rappers or women MCs on how they also defined hip hop culture and what they had to go through. And then also another takeaway was, if there can ever be a story of success that did not include stepping on people or taking advantage of people or stealing or copying or, you know, any of those things, like, is that something that can really happen? You know, I do recommend the book. I thought it was well written. It's not exhaustive in terms of the information in it, but I like the way the author put it together. The Wait, A Powerful Practice to Finding the Love of Your Life and the Life You Love by DeVon Franklin and Meagan Good. I actually purchased it a few years ago and for whatever reason, read it this year. The main message behind it was like waiting to have sex until marriage. What I liked about the book was that it was not beating you over the head of why they feel that's the only choice or that's the only commitment you should be making, and if you're not making that, you're terrible. Like, that was totally not the vibe of the book. What I really liked about it was that it provided really good examples. Both Meagan and DeVon gave a lot of personal experiences as the examples as to why they made the commitment that they did, and trying to showcase that because they say their marriage is wonderful and they list this commitment that they made for themselves to be partly the reason for that. I liked how through those examples they showed what type of reasoning or reflections you can make with the commitments you make for yourself, which don't necessarily have to do with sex. It actually could also be the commitment to drink more water every day. It could also be the commitment to read more books. It could also be the commitment to do things that are just positive for yourself, which I thought was awesome, because I think sometimes we can make commitments for ourselves that are more based off of external validation and coming from a place of lack or coming from a place of feeling like you need to fix yourself. And that's why you're committing to not eating, or you need to fix yourself. So that's why you're committing to not have fun or to not enjoy yourself, you know? Like sacrifices are important, but there's a balance in that. I also liked how with those examples, it also gave you, it also gave me examples of how to differentiate between people who are on your team with those commitments you make for yourself, which again can be if you are committing to abstain from physical intimacy, but also you're committing to not participate in gossip. Being able to see who is really on your team in that, of like actually would encourage you and who actually would hinder that, I think that was important, or that stood out to me, because in previous chapters of my very, very long life, I've had a pattern of interacting with people, and this is professionally, friendly, potentially romantically, whatever, people who really were just around me for what I can bring that benefits them. And conflict would always come up the moment I'm asking or asserting my benefit. That's when, no, there's a problem. You're the problem, Dagny. Well, obviously this is not gonna work. Well, obviously you need to think about what you did wrong. Like, and before I would internalize that as being like I made the mistake or I did something wrong, right? So I like how in this book, at least from what I got out of it, it showed how those people were not on the team to begin with. So what their opinion was really was never going to help you anyway. And that conflict was like a total sign or total like green light, you can move on now, because this is why you really weren't getting anything out of the interaction. This is why you couldn't get as much as you could out of the interaction, because they really weren't on your team to begin with. Now, in terms of what rubbed me the wrong way, this might be just the way I was reading the book, but the way each chapter went, you have like Meagan will say her side and DeVon will say his side. And what I did not like, and it's possible this is just like the way I read it, or it's possible this is really just the way they see themselves, but I didn't like how Meagan always came across as she is painting herself as a failure and a victim and bad and, unworthy of anything good because she's human and she was being physically intimate. She was having relationships and she was being physically intimate in those relationships. While DeVon was painted as he's actually okay either way. He just happened to decide to abstain during a period of time. He links that to all the success that came into his life. And so he's even better, but he actually was a good person even before making that decision. And it's possible that's just me reading into, lines that nobody else can see. We could take that and have that be the environment to discuss the self-hate and the different degrees of self-hate between all genders. I want to hear that from you guys. For those of you who identify as men or would identify as, I guess, leaning more into your masculine energy, how do you process disappointments and heartbreak and setbacks or mistakes in general? Do you punish yourself? Do you keep it moving? How do you keep it moving without it happening again, as well as without pulling yourself out of the race or pulling yourself away from what you deserve but have yet to see? And then for people who identify as women or identify as you lean more into your feminine energy, how do you Do you resonate with the way, at least from my interpretation, do you resonate with the way how she processed why she made the decision she made, in terms of, because if things are not working out, you feel then you must be unworthy of having things work out? Or is that just like unique to some people and nobody else? Have we figured out a way to stop doing that? I would say the biggest takeaway in terms of my interpretation of waiting for things or making commitments to yourself with and which can encompass your sexual experiences or not. Be very careful that it's not coming from a place of you feeling inadequate. And that's why you're cutting yourself off of something, because you feel like you don't deserve it. Instead of removing something out of your life because you can see it does not serve you. Do you hear the difference? My next book was Parable of the Talents by Octavia E. Butler. Oh my goodness. All right, now, I did not know anything about the book before I picked it up, okay? And then I read it, and I'm like, this is so creepy. The book was written in 1998, but like her story, totally like creepy. It's so creepy because it totally sounds like what's happening right now. I'm like, how did she know? Yeah. I like the story of a woman trying to create and cultivate a community in an environment where like, the whole sense of community where you have people looking out for each other has been destroyed. And in spite of creating trying to create a safe space for people who are all from different walks of life, you have to subscribe to this particular earth seed that's not a religion, but kind of a religion. And then it's so easily taken away from them when these extremists come in and totally like utilize them as slaves. And nobody knows. And then in spite of that, she still is able to cultivate the community again, but even bigger because it's not confined to one space. I feel that was like encouraging and creepy at the same time, to be honest. Like it was like, oh my, but this is so depressing. Oh my goodness. Because it was depressing to also see like when you have that environment, when you're in those circumstances where all law and order has been destroyed because of some mysterious thing called pox. Why is it that, I guess like all like utopian type stories, why do so many human beings default into violence? In particular, sexual violence. There was so much sexual violence that people had to go through in the story. And I was like, but what causes people to fall into that when nobody can escape what's happening? Like economic hierarchy means nothing. The pox stole everything from everybody. So like, why burning down? Why have to like go and burn down everyone else's homes and steal? And I was like, why is that human nature? It's an interesting read, This is my first Octavia Butler book, actually, for me. So not sure if that was a good thing or not, because again, I read the series backwards because there's another book before that book. So because of that, in terms of the way it was written, I felt sometimes the story was a little slow or was stalling a little bit because like the chapter, all we did was, oh, we're in this little town called Acorn and a new person came into the town and they are here. And that was it. And I'm like, wait, what? That's all that happened in this chapter. Why? But I know, because I can feel the sense of like, but I know something's coming. Like I could just tell the way it's written, something's coming, no. And then the other thing that like, I was like, oh, so annoyed was, I get it that the main character, she wasn't extreme, but she was very intensely passionate about what she felt she needed to accomplish. And I just felt so annoyed or irritated or frustrated for her of how hard it was to find people who got it and was like, yes, let's go. Not necessarily being like just yes people, like just saying yes for the sake of it, but to have people who were not afraid of change or not afraid of something new. Like her own brother and her own daughter were so like not together at all, did not get it, did not want to get it, and were so like triggered by her success and by her tenacity to just keep on going regardless of all the obstacles that were in front of her. And I'm like, you mad? Why? She honestly didn't do anything to you. Like, she did not harm you. So I couldn't understand, like, are you mad because you couldn't do what she does? Or like, how dare she feel like she can accomplish what she accomplished? I don't know. But that I was annoyed like for the character. But overall, I would also recommend this book if you're interested in something new. It's not lighthearted though. Like, it's not and Everyone Lived Happily Ever After is definitely not that kind of book. Even the ending, you're like, okay, but did she really win though? Like, I don't know. I don't want to say the ending though, because, I don't want to ruin it for you, but it's a good read, and it's by, the legendary Octavia Butler. So you should totally, if you have not read any of her books before, you should totally get into it, but possibly read the first book before that one, because that book was actually the sequel to another book. Don't read it backwards like me. The Game of Desire: 5 Surprising Secrets for Dating with Dominance and Getting What You Want by Shannon Boodram. This book I got primarily because I've been following Shannon Boodram's content for a couple of years now. Actually, oh my gosh, it might be 6 or 7 years now. Oh my goodness. So I found her on YouTube, loved her content. I've just been following her ever since. Her niche is relationships and sex. So she actually gathered a number of women together. Well, of course, they had to like audition to be a part of this. So the book was kind of a part of a study, or a part of her process of being a mentor to someone when it comes to their dating life. And I like how it was written because it kind of allows you, the reader, to find what resonates with you. And because there's such a diversity in the types of women she's speaking to and the types of tips she's giving, you come away from the book feeling like it gives you a framework to better understand what your expectations are and should be in who you decide to interact with, which you can utilize, yes, in like romantic relationships, as well as family relationships, as well as professional relationships and friendly relationships and stranger relationships, like all of them, to get a sense of like, okay, what should be your list of priorities and expectations, and why do they resonate with you? Why are they important to you? And what I loved was that it gives you like the main goal to make sure both of y'all's priorities are aligned. So it's not about like how to trick someone to be with you or how to attract everybody. It's more of like how to really be intentional here. So you don't get exhausted by disappointments. I think it helps you to be more in the driver's seat. I think all genders need to be in the driver's seat of their own life. So I liked the way she wrote it. And then also the way she wrote it is accessible. You feel like you're listening to one of her videos, really, because it is written in the way she speaks. So I would recommend the book for all genders if you're interested in brushing up on your own skills, possibly picking up some new skills you didn't know about, and getting yourself back in the driver's seat of your life if you feel like you've been, cruising in the passenger seat for too long. So I do recommend the book. Also recommend checking out her platform. Like, she's primarily a YouTuber, but now she also has a show on Netflix, also a show on Quibbly. So she knows her stuff, and I like her vibe and her personality. She makes this sort of information more relatable and more accessible, regardless of where you are on your journey. Next book is How Long Till Black Future Month by N.K. Jemisin. This book actually is a collection of short stories. I absolutely loved it. Like, oh my goodness, it was such a wealth of creativity and inspiration. And like for each of them, I wanted to know the rest of the story. So the way she writes, at least for these short stories, the way she writes them, you're kind of like parachuted, like you just dive right in to like the middle of the story. You don't know why the characters are important or not, but you just get this glimpse. There was another one about New York when New York is actually alive. Like the city is alive, but the people in it don't realize that it's alive. But there's one person who's now been chosen to be New York. So they're the one who they feel everything the city feels. And they have to save the city from things that the people of the city don't even know about, like this huge alien jellyfish. I was like, this is so cool. I was like, oh my gosh, when is this gonna be a cartoon movie? And then I also loved how each story had like this moral message in it. You know, like this writer is awesome. I love her. Like each story had a message in it. Like there was one about an author. And in this era and in this environment, when people reach their peak of creativity, whether they're a scientist, an author, a musician, a writer, whatever it is, a physician, whatever, they get this award. And the award is that, okay, you are now noted for, you have done this amazing thing. And then you're killed and your body parts are taken apart and given to different labs to dissect. And that society decided to do that because there was this recurring theme of people who are so brilliant enter this plateau of they've created something that is so amazing, and for whatever reason they can't top it, either because of pressure of doing better, and for whatever reason their inspiration has been sapped from them, and so they become a burden on society because they are depressed. They get into drugs and alcohol and inevitably end up committing suicide. So this was society's way of not doing that, because we can't celebrate this brilliant person when they commit suicide, because now all we remember is they were a failure because they obviously could not top what they did. I was like, what? This is so cool, like, yes. And then there was another one about Hurricane Katrina. And it's like the storm came and everybody, was leaving New Orleans. And this one person decided, no, I'm gonna stay. We always have storms, it's fine. And the flooding happens. And there's this one, and he goes outside and he sees, okay, yeah, the flooding happened. And there's this one lizard that has wings that can talk to him saying, oh, you should probably leave because there's this other monster coming that tends to come when a storm like this happens. You gotta be careful. And the guy again is like, yeah, whatever. And the monster, actually, even though it's like some sea monster something, but actually the sea monster, it causes everybody that's around it, human beings that's around it, to become violent and negative, and like all the pain and violence and negativity that's suppressed comes out. And this lizard, the talking lizard, is actually a part of this whole group of lizards that try to save humans by fighting against the sea monster. And the guy ends up helping out with that. I was like, what? And there's all this like, what New Orleans will always be, and the pain and negativity that's coming up is not alien, or it's not coming from a vacuum, because it's connected to the pain that the city has felt. I was like, oh my goodness, I love this. I can't even list something I didn't like about it. To be honest, the only thing I didn't like about this book was that I couldn't read the full story of each of these stories. That's what I didn't like, because all of them were short stories. I was like, wait, no, I want to know what happens. But it's not in the book. If any of the examples I just told you pique your interest, you should definitely check out that book. I'm definitely trying to check out more from that author because I really liked her style of writing. The next book is Year One by Nora Roberts. Okay. Now this book was written a few years ago. And it also is one of those that is really a little creepy of how much it feels like it's telling the story of what's happening right now. A virus comes around. And the way it happens is like someone ate some bird. When people like go and have, how some people have like some cabin in the woods and they go outside and like shoot a bird and then cook it and then eat it? Yeah, which happened in this story. It happens in America, like, I don't know, wherever you have mountains, Colorado, whatever. So they eat this bird, everyone feels okay, you know, and then the next day they all go back to their own cities that they live in, and all of them are feeling sick and they're taken to the hospital. But then it tracks how, because they're on the plane, everyone on that plane got sick and got the virus, and everyone that they track. So this thing just balloons in terms of how it infects everyone. And because it happens so fast, the feeling of like, wow, the world is coming to an end comes very quickly. Because then, of course, law and order completely breaks down. And basically in this story, half of the world's population gets wiped out by this virus. But the added thing to that is, for the people who survived, who for whatever reason, they just didn't catch it, half of them are just human, and the other half of them discover some magical power. Whether they can like turn on, like they can control fire, they turn into a fairy, they can read minds, they can bend metal, like kind of like X-Men almost, is what happens. But the issue though is that of that group of people who now have powers, half of them are good and half of them are dark. And so humans who don't have powers are scared of everyone who has power, because they either have only interacted with the ones that have dark magic. And so they believe everybody who has these powers are freaks and they should all be killed. So then there's this, even though like everything is broken down, but humans, part of them start this like group that is based off of religion, because their leader is like preaching as if they are a preacher about how they need to rid the world of these magical people. And so one of the characters, because you don't necessarily have like one main character, you have like a collection of characters who meet each other at one point of the story and end up staying together for a little bit. And one of them ends up, she is pregnant. And then it turns out her child is the one that is going to save everybody once she turns a certain age. I thought it was a pretty cool story overall. I have not told you how it ends, so don't worry, I didn't spoil anything for you. In terms of things that I was like, sometimes the story was a little slow. I will admit that, where sometimes some chapters I'm like, nothing really happened in this chapter, like, or it would be really slow, and for me anyway, it would be a little slow, and then immediately something will happen and rush through it, and then it goes back to being slow. So like everything is going, and then all of a sudden, bloop, something comes up, we have to fight, oh my gosh, someone died, and then we're moving on. And now we've plateaued again, and I'm like, what? And then the way the battle is written, it doesn't feel real. It feels like that escalated way too quickly. It was way too easy to kill this character. Where did y'all even come from? Like, how did you know they were there? Like, it just seemed like, oh, you just brought them in so that there could be some conflict, at least to me. Anyway, it is a part of a series, so that's the first book of that series. And yes, I plan to continue that series too. So this time, I did not read the series backwards. Next book is actually two books that are a pair, as in the first book and then its sequel. The first book was called Who Fears Death, and the second book is called The Book of Phoenix, and both of them are by Nnedi Okorafor. Okorafor. I will learn how to pronounce it correctly next time. Sorry. I absolutely love these books. These two, like, the writing. I absolutely love this author. This is also first book I've read from this author, and I absolutely love her style of writing. It felt like I was listening to a real African griot telling me a story. Like that is what it felt like, and I loved it. I also love the way in these two books, she travels through time in such a seamless way. And you're so engrossed in the story that you don't feel confused. Like, wait, hold up. Are we tomorrow or are we yesterday? What's going on? You know, you just want to know what happens next, kind of thing. So that's what I really liked. In this story, it's the bigger picture behind this story is about the Great Book, which is kind of like, it's not necessarily a religious book like the Bible or the Quran, but it's a book that everybody turns to explain why things are the way they are, why traditions are the way they are, why the hierarchy of certain tribes are the way they are. And the story takes you on this need to change that book, and what journey the people who were chosen to change it, what journey they had to go through in changing it. And there's so much like symbolism behind why the characters are the way they are, and what they turn into, and symbolism behind juju and the interactions between different tribes. It was so beautiful. It really was. In the first book, you're primarily in the desert or among cities that are in the desert parts of Africa. And then in the second book, you actually travel between New York and Ghana. And in both of these books, you're actually in a future. You're actually never in the present. You're in a short future from right now, and then a really, really distant future from right now. And it was so cool. I really enjoyed it. The only thing that annoyed me, again, was the main character in both books is a woman, two different women who don't know each other. And both of these women have like all the power in the world, physically manifesting within their own body. They don't have to utilize tools or anything. It's all just within them. And throughout both of their stories, they're constantly sometimes causing the problem or part of the problem because of the way they react to things. In the first book, she's sometimes being a little arrogant of how powerful she is because she doesn't know how to use it, and then causing herself a problem. And it's like, why can't you just listen to the people around you? Like, they weren't even attacking you. What are you doing? Then the second one, sometimes I'm like, how are you gonna just go and not tell your team what you're doing, and then be surprised when you come back and they're under attack? Like, why would you do that? No, you guys were so close to winning, so close. Why? Which shows that this author is amazing, because I was invested in this character. And I will let you find out whether or not they do win at the end. Don't want to spoil it for you, but it has action, it has culture, it has mystery, it has love. It was awesome. I really liked the story, and I really liked the way that she wrote those books. Those are all my books, y'all. That was a total of 9, starting from January to June. As a kid, I was an avid reader. Like, I always had a book in my backpack that was not a part of what we're supposed to be reading in school. And I was one of those who I would finish the latest Harry Potter book within 2 days. Like, that was me. I'm really glad I've been able to bring that back into my life. So some tips on how can you bring books back into your life? Now for me, I still prefer physical books. I'm not into e-readers, really. For me, I feel like since so much work is done on a screen and so much communication is done on a screen, I want to break from the screen. And so reading a book from a screen is not relaxing to me. Also, in terms of maintaining consistency of reading, a tip, at least what helps me, I read before I go to bed. It's a treat for me. And it also helps me to not look at my phone before I go to bed, because as all of us have heard, it's not very healthy to be scrolling through your phone right before you go to bed. Make sure you go to my website, dagnyzenovia.com, where I will list all of these books and elaborate further on my take on them, as well as information on if you're interested in joining the book club I mentioned at the beginning. The information will be there. I also want to hear from you. So first, comment below and share with me, would you be interested in any of these books? First and foremost, I want to get a sense of what kind of books are you interested in. And I'm looking for new books to read for the second half of the year. So do you have any recommendations or suggestions? Comment below and share with me. Thank you so much for watching. Be safe. I'll see you next time.